Welcome to the Bernie's Bootlegs podcast, where we explore the stories of successful musicians and share their perspectives on being an artist in a digital age. I'm your host, Kenny McCabe, and let's get into the show. What's up, podcast? In today's episode, we're speaking with vocalist, composer, and arranger Svetlana. In addition to discussing her new record, we also spoke about growing up in Russia, her previous lives as a math teacher and business consultant, how she balanced studying music while working a day job and raising children, her time at Manhattan School of Music, why you need to focus on your own musical path, her forays into arranging and working with big bands, her advice to young musicians starting their careers, and much more. You can find Svetlana on her website at svetlanajazz.com and also on Instagram at SvetlanaJazz. And so without further ado, I bring you my conversation with Svetlana. Okay, guys, I'm here with Svetlana. Svetlana, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well. I'm just getting the day started here and all of that. And so we have finally managed to overcome the technological difficulties of communicating via video and audio over the interwebs.
Yes.
But
is it real, the interwebs?
Exactly. But so here we are. So that's cool. And you have a new record out in September.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes. I was lucky to have a lot of friends buy it and pre-order it. So it actually debuted as #1 on U.S. traditional jazz charts and Billboard. So yes, it's out now.
That's awesome. And I'm sure people can go buy it. I mean, is the best place like your website? Is it?
Well, depends on your poison, what you like best. If you are in the mood to support artists and buy a physical signed CD, yes, my website is svetlanajazz.com. But everybody has caught up to Spotify and iTunes. It's everywhere, really. So anything that you prefer, I'm happy for you to get the music.
Yeah, absolutely. And so tell us what it's called, who's on it, what the concept is, and all of that.
Sure. Well, so I loved movies since I was a kid. When I was little, I grew up in Moscow, Russia, and I grew up at the very edge of the kind of dark Soviet times. So watching movies, reading books, music, it was all kind of the way to escape the very regimented reality that we grew up in. And so movies in particular, I was enamored by. It just took you away, that kind of beautiful world, and music had to do with that as well. So for this record, I first had this idea or thought, to pick songs from different eras, from 30s to today, really, and try to kind of pick the movies that mean something to me and the music that I feel is beautiful. And interestingly, I ended up with a collection, after narrowing it down, of songs that were all about dreaming, and dreaming both in terms of just being enamored by the night and its mysteries, but also dreaming as in escaping your present circumstance and overcoming. And if I take that lens back to why I was interested in the movies, it actually turned out to be quite magical, that I picked the songs because they were beautiful, and then I was just struck by them speaking about the same kind of thing through different decades. So that's the concept. I was lucky to work with a wonderful producer, Matt Pearson, on this record. He has done work with so many amazing artists that I admire, Becca Stevens and Jane Van Hyde and Pasquale Grasso. And he helped me put together a crazy group of people that all said yes, which was awesome. Some of the people that I work with day to day, like the rhythm section, was Elias Bailey on bass, John Chin on piano, and Rob Garcia on drums. And these are the folks that work a lot with kind of more singers coming from tradition, like Renee Marie and Freddie Cole. And then we had so many special guests, Wycliffe Gordon, who I worked with a lot over the years. He sings 2 songs with me, and he plays trombone, of course. And then Sullivan Fortner is a guest on a couple of songs, kind of the NOLA vibe tunes, but also him and I have one duet, which was petrifying, but it's like sitting on the most comfortable chair playing with him, because he just creates this giant landscape where you feel like you're playing with an orchestra, but it's just one person. Pasquale Grasso, similarly, I have a couple duets with him, and then he played a supportive role on many tunes. Matt Wilson is a guest on a couple tunes, and then a beautiful horn section, a string section. So I started wanting just a simple record, and then it kind of got away from me.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a little bit of everything. I mean, just a lot of different configurations there.
Yes, 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 for sure.
Yeah, so I'd love to give the audience some context just about you. So you mentioned growing up in Moscow, which
Yes.
I'm sure a lot of people will find super interesting because, it's obviously much different than America. And so, what was it like growing up there? I mean, what was your family situation like? How did the interest in music come about? Was there a very
Sure.
strong music scene there? And just tell us about kind of your upbringing, I guess.
Sure. Thank you for asking. Um, my family are all engineers, and Soviet society was very stratified, I guess is the way to put it. If you were born into family engineers, that was the path. I studied math, I studied computers, I was pretty good at it. I had a lot of support at home, wonderful family. And I also studied music. I studied piano for 7 years, just classical, because that was part of what you did. You had to study music, you had to study languages, you had to study math, and kind of. But the professional path, was supposed to be in something practical. So on one hand, arts really spoke to me, just because I was exposed to them, and your heart just responds to something. You can't control it. I was painting and drawing and singing since very, very early age. But then professionally, of course, I'm going to be an engineer or a math teacher or something like that. So I was a good girl and did all that, and became a math teacher, actually, and computer teacher. But then I just said, listen, I just love music. And I went and started a degree in jazz back in Russia still. And then an opportunity presented itself to go to New York. And I kind of dropped everything. And through various trials and tribulations, when I was here again, first studying management and actually being a management consultant for a number of years, again, finally kind of allowed myself to just stop on my tracks. Went to Manhattan School of Music, which was, after all the degrees I've earned in math and statistics, and actually have a doctoral degree in statistics from Columbia. MSM, master's degree, was the hardest thing I've ever done. I was the
Wow.
least prepared of everybody, but I met amazing people. We had such a community. Benny Benak was one classmate, Emmett Cohen, Curtis Noasad, Billy Test, and it was just incredible to both learn from them and connect with a wider New York musicians community. So, I don't know if that's more than you've asked for. It's a little bit of
No.
a pass.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot to unpack there. And so, what exactly was the opportunity to move to New York? Like,
Sure.
but like before that happened, were you thinking about that at all, or were you just planning on staying
No.
and being, a math teacher or whatever?
Yeah. I mean, I think I worked for a year as a math teacher, and I pretty quickly realized that I love teaching, but it was not for me because, it was not for me because just the school of teaching was very conservative and like very, very old school. And someone so young stepping into the system, like you had to either buy into it or just step out. So I did not think I would leave Russia. Our whole life growing up was about trying to fit in, and I did a good job, with that. But then the curtains opened up, and U.S. started bringing folks over to study in the U.S. with the idea that building open society starts with education. So people would come here, receive, degrees from Columbia, Harvard, from all these different places. And then the idea would be that they would go back and build a more, civilized, open society, both in values and in business, and kind of have allies on both sides of the curtain. Well, so I came here, I was 23, and the whole New York scene just fell onto me. And I decided to try and stay. And so I did. And I went on to further my studies, like I said, at Columbia University. Then I went on to have a whole business career. So I guess in a way I betrayed the hope of that scholarship, but hopefully I did not, because I'm a productive contributing member of this society. So
yeah, and so
there you go.
Yeah, so that whole time, I mean, starting from a young age up until when you went to Manhattan School, were you singing still? Were you
Yes.
were you taking lessons with people?
Yes.
Like what did that look like?
You're good. Good questions. Seriously, thank you. I was. So when I got to New York, so like I said, just before I went to New York, I entered kind of like an evening college as I was working during the day to earn a degree in jazz. So I finished with like excellent marks, 2 years, and then I came here. And so I found couple teachers over the years, Janet Lawson and Elena Vasilchikova. They're both actually faculty at the New School, vocal faculty. And I've been taking lessons with them. I met a couple of musicians, and I started being a guest kind of in their shows. But for me, the real break was when I had a gig with my own band, and I got a taste of what would it be like to actually put a band together, put a program together. And I mean, I didn't know what I was doing. I mean, I hope no videos exist of that gig, because I'm sure my romantic recollections of it do not reflect the truth. But I just got this buzz, and I was not going back. And so I started pursuing more gigs. I started studying with Carolyn Leonard, who is the daughter of Jay Leonard, the bassist, and herself is a Grammy award-winning artist, a vocalist, and she was very encouraging. I was studying also with J.D. Walter, who is a vocalist, a phenomenal musician and educator. And with their help, I got Tom Dempsey's a guitar player. He helped me prepare for MSM entrance exams, and there I was on my way, the oldest kid in class.
Yeah, so I'm just trying to like understand the timeline fully here. So
okay, go for it.
Yeah, so you get a PhD from Columbia, right?
Okay, yeah, let me orient you in my crazy life.
Okay.
So, I studied mathematics as a college degree in Soviet Union, or not Soviet Union anymore, just Russia. Then I got this 2-year, I guess, degree, not degree yet, like associate, I guess, in jazz in Russia. Then I come to New York. What brought me here is a scholarship to the New School, School of Management, Milano School of Management, where I earned a master's degree in nonprofit management. From there, I go on to Columbia University. Are you still handling it?
Yes, I'm following.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so I that degree was a doctorate degree in organization psychology, so it was kind of sociology, so statistics and research and all of that. From there, I went on to work as a management consultant for a number of years. All along, while in New York, I was taking lessons here and there and doing little gigs. And then I had a family, so I had kids and all of that. And then I was like, okay, now let's do me. And I went to MSM because I thought that my learning was not fast enough. I had a lot of gaps: theory, arranging, composition, writing music, laying it out, using technology, software, So I thought, I'm just going to go for it. And I went to MSM, and that's where I earned my master's degree in jazz, and have been gigging all along and ever since.
Yeah, I understand. And so at what point did you quit your management job? Was that right when you went to MSM, or was it before?
Well, after I had children, before I worked for a consulting firm where it's a lot like army. They call you on a Monday and like, okay, now you're going for 6 months to Columbus, Ohio, Monday for Friday. So once I had family, that lifestyle was difficult. So I started working for myself. So it was a little bit like this, music was kind of increasing and the consulting business a little bit decreasing. So every so often I still get a call for a project. So it's not like I kind of quit cold turkey, but it's more so that music started to take more and more of my life. And, I'm still at it, but I still get a call here and there to do something, but less and less so.
I understand. And so after you graduate MSM, well, what
Yeah.
year did you graduate MSM?
Good question. I tried to erase all that. I think from my mind. I think it was 4 years ago. I have to look it up. Yeah, I think it was 13, 14, or 14, 15, something like that. I'm sorry.
That's okay. It's all good. And so I love,
Fifth degree. Who's counting?
yes, exactly. And so I'd love for you to give some context about who were some of the most influential mentors or peers that you had at Manhattan School, and just tell us a little bit more about what you were learning there and what value you found in that degree.
Yeah. Well, so my main teacher was Theo Blackman. So he is a vocalist and composer and just like a amazing educator. And also Kate McGarry, who is also a vocalist and, composer and all of that. I was also there when Gretchen Parlato was there. So I've studied a bit with her, though not so much. So from the point of view of technique and, like Theo could be really, stop doing this, start doing this, stop doing this. But I had this conversation with then program coordinator whose name is Chris Rosenberg, who's a guitar player. And he said, look, Svetlana, this is graduate school, as in its job is to have you try all these different things, whether you think they're applicable to you or not, try them on, really immerse yourself in, and then put it aside. And so that was a useful perspective. So with Theo, I learned a lot again about technique and kind of singing a particular way. He forced me to arrange things in a way that I would not have necessarily arranged myself, in a much more modern way, mixing meters and using different harmonies that are not that are stepping far from the original. Kate McGarry, her thing is much more about kind of singing the song and grabbing your heart and just like squeezing tears out of it. So I learned a lot from them. And then there were teachers like Phil Markovitz and Jim McNeely. Those were the classes that was the hardest. It had to do with arranging, composing, arranging stuff in different jazz styles. I was very slow, but this is really a huge part of why I went to school, because now it allows me suggest arranging ideas and then frankly work with arrangers in a way where I can tell them exactly what I need. I can look at their work and get back to them and say, I like this. Can you change this? It just made me literate. I would not pronounce myself an arranger, but I'm certainly, before going to MSM, my set was all tunes. Now it is all arranging, and it's a huge influence by Phil and by Jim.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's really interesting what you said earlier, which is that, you had a PhD from Columbia, math degree, like all sorts of stuff, but MSM was the hardest one.
Yeah.
Which is so interesting to me. And so,
I think part of it was because, frankly, I was just least prepared. I mean, I was among kids who just went to music school for 4 years. Frankly, what I needed was a bachelor's degree in music that would take me slow, little by little. But my life, I was not going to go back and take, literature and languages. Like, I've explored that path with a couple of schools, like with a new school. And they said, no, you're going to have to do 4 full years. And I said, I mean, no, I can't. So MSM was one school that they basically accepted you based on this theory exam, which I nailed because I had this, theory preparation from before. And they did not require piano proficiency. So I enrolled in, piano, jazz piano lessons at school. And then it was based on audition. So it was kind of like the only place I could really go for my life and everything. But it was really rough, The first lesson, Phil Markovitz, everybody's sitting in rows. And he said, okay, so we're going to do this now. I'm going to play intervals, then triads, then 7th chords, 9 chords, 11th, 13th, and you're going to tell me what they are. And so I was like in the third row. So by the time he got to me, I was just like, and some kids in class were saying, oh, I don't know what it's called, but these are the notes because I have perfect pitch. And I was like, shit, I was just past. And so I came up to him later and he said, I don't have time for this. Get a tutor. So I said, okay. And I got a tutor, and it helped me a lot going through all these assignments that a lot of other kids were just nailing because it was second nature to them. But Phil gave me the biggest smile when I came in with exactly what he asked for. And, he realized that I'm a hard worker and I'm just going to be slow and steady. And it was a very rewarding experience to be learning from him.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a lot to be said for working hard, but not necessarily being like not like the smartest, but just like someone who learns things like the fastest. A lot of times they lack like the hard work component. And so a lot of times I feel like if you go slower, you end up learning it more in depth than someone who can learn it in 2 seconds.
I think it's just everybody has a different path. And I think that's what we learn in music. Since starting this music path for myself, I have met hundreds of new people, and everybody has their own path and own struggles. You can't look at someone and be like, oh, this kid got everything. Everything comes easy to them musically and career-wise. It's just everyone has their own path. And I'm lucky to be able to go in and start making music and have this incredible people in my record. And I think everybody's just going with what they got. And in the end of the day, it's about how much you want it. If you really, really want it, you're not going to quit. In part, unless you have other life circumstances. But I don't know. I mean, there are people who in that program for whom everything came very easily, and they're doing fabulously with their careers too. And it's great. Good for them. It doesn't really take anything from me. So.
Yeah. And so as someone who's obviously, as you said, explored like other career paths, like the other side of life, like art versus like a more structured type thing. Is that something that, one, are you glad that you did? And two, would you recommend to someone else?
No. Well, no, I'm being self-demeaning and sarcastic. I think what I've learned is this. I switched my path. I turned to music because I just I really wanted it, It was not something where I was kind of picking between the two anymore. I was picking between the two paths when I was 17, right out of high school, and I picked the structured kind of career path. And then I just realized that there was this gap in my life. It was just making me so sad, So I could not pursue it in a way, I took this one evening class at this wonderful amateur kind of musician school called the New York Jazz Academy. Mr. Javier Arau, the saxophone player, founded the school, and it's huge now. And I was in Carolyn Leonard's masterclass, and I was the youngest person by far. There were 70-year-old women, couple men, And forgive me for saying they were so incompetent. They were so bad. And I was just thinking, this is me, you know, 30, 40 years from now, this is going to be me not having fulfilled my dream. And that filled me with such rage and fear. You know, it was like of course I was projecting. I mean, they were perfectly happy ladies, you know, from Upper West Side. But to me, it looked like a graveyard of unrealized dreams. And I was just, that really burned some fire under my ass, you know. And that's where I went to study with Carolyn. And I said, I'm doing this, you know. I had no idea. But it's also difficult because as an adult person entering, you know, the field where there are kids who can sleep in late, who can go on tour and make, you know, $50 a night. This is not my life. You know, I have responsibilities, and in part it's holding me back, to be frank, but in part it provides balance. You know, I have a wonderful life outside of music, and that is definitely keeping me grounded. So when you're asking if you'd recommend it, how badly do you want it? And then how you're going to achieve balance in your life if you do make the switch, you know? Not that I have aced the balance yet, you know? It's definitely a work in progress.
Yeah, I think balance will pretty much always be a work in progress, especially when you're trying to, you know, balance one side of your life with music and then also like throwing children and like family life into the mix. That must be
For sure.
extremely difficult. So
yes, it is. It is. And it's making a living. It's not a joke, you know. Can you leave the house? And I talk to my colleagues who have kids, you know, and it's the same for all of us. In a way, part of our soul wants to just always play every day, you know, and like not really care. When I'm on tour and I play every day for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 days, this is just, I'm a gypsy, you know, at heart. It makes me so happy. But can you really be happy like this if you need to provide for your family, which I do? If you need and you want to be with your family, which I do. So I can't go out for a month at a time, you know. The balance is it. The balance is the most difficult thing.
for sure. And so just on like a more like music specific note, I guess. So you graduated from MSM like 4 or 5 years ago.
Yes,
So
I
what?
think so.
And so what have you been working on just in terms of like learning tunes or like continuing your the things that you were learning at MSM? Like what does a practice session look like for you now? Like tell us about what you've been up to in terms of what you've been studying.
Sure, thank you. So multiple things. MSM really opened me up to composing and songwriting, as in I've always had it on such pedestal, you know. And there's the story, which maybe is true, about Stevie Wonder, and someone asked him, how is it that you put out an amazing album of 10 songs every year? And his answer was, I write a song every day. And that's what they made us kind of me understand. So I'm working with a great, you know, songwriting partner and kind of accumulating that material. There's some songs that I think are good. There are some songs that are shit, you know, so we'll see what happens with that. Since graduating, I've made 2 albums, and the first one was more, you know, kind of older traditional jazz, swing, a lot of tunes for dancers. That's kind of the scene I fell into and kind of swallowed me in, and it's super fun, and I still play a lot of gigs there. But then with this record, I kind of stepped away in a more mixed vibes and some straight ahead, and still very much vocal oriented. But I'm exploring more of that kind of music. And the band that recorded with me the first album, that band I perform with still every Monday at this cool speakeasy residency called The Back Room. on the Lower East Side, so you can find me there almost every Monday. But then my touring group became different and kind of pursuing other formats of music, and I'm learning a lot from them. I've also met a fantastic player, arranger, singer. Damn it, he's such a great singer, Seth Weber, when I was at MSM, and he started a big band, and we together co-led this one gig, which was monthly residency at Zing Bar. So I've built up an entire book of big band music, which is exciting to me, and that culminated for me is having my own big band show last year under my own name. So that's been important. Like I told you before, really understanding the arrangements and being able to intelligently work with a band around that, and with music director. It was, part of why I went to MSM. And I continue working on my technique. I continue studying with Kate McGarry. I continue studying with this teacher called Jeannie Lavetri, and I went to a teaching seminar about this particular school of thought on vocals, which is, in a nutshell, kind of engaging your whole body in a particular way for natural, vocal production, which works for different genres. Always looking out for new teachers to learn from. I just met this new teacher who is also very interesting, and taking lessons with him. Trying to do a little bit of practice every day, with kids. It doesn't always happen, to be frank, that's kind of the cloud of things. I don't know if that helps. I mean, yeah. I hoping to go back to piano lessons, because that's definitely became a little bit of an abandoned territory. MSM became so busy that I was just doing just enough to pass, but I miss it. A friend just gave away her piano to me, so I have that now, and been a little bit working on that a little bit. But yeah.
That's awesome, and I have to give a brief shout out to Seth Weber. I had him on the podcast a couple of weeks ago. Cool. It's not out now, but by the time this podcast is out, people can go back and listen to it. That one was a great podcast. Seth is a great guy.
He's a great guy, hard worker. I mean, running a big band in New York, it's like so much effort, so much money, so much everything. I just had one of my own big band gig, and I was like, wow, okay. But him and I had a great run, and I'm so happy to see him doing other things. And I know the record is going to come out soon. And he's a fantastic singer, really. I want to hear more on that from him.
Yeah, absolutely. So shout out to him. And just the last couple things here, like if someone is a musician, let's say they just graduated college, or they're about to graduate college, and they're looking out at the world and they're trying to figure out, like, okay, how am I going to make a living? Like, what am I going to do with this music thing that I'm so passionate about? Like, what would be some of your advice to that person?
Well, depending on the instrument, right? There are different paths that can exist at the same time. I think if you're an instrumentalist, I think developing a strong sideman career is important, because that's a lot of where your bills come from. And on that note, as a person who is mainly a leader, almost exclusively a leader, things we're looking in sidemen are, yes, strong skills. For example, for me now, I'm dealing with a situation now, actually, right today, where my number one player who was scheduled to go with me on tour cannot, because of the emergency. So things happen. I need someone who is an excellent reader. And believe it or not, this is not a skill that a lot of cats in New York have. And then there are some young players who are exceptional. They just sit down and read everything perfectly. And develop that so you can jump into any situation and play your ass off. Be a professional. Don't be entitled. Understand that band leader most likely is working so hard to secure gigs, to deal with you professionally. Again, of course, there are band leaders who are not very professional, but be easy to work with, be on time, be appreciative, and you're going to get this call again, again and again and again and again. And the people that I call, they're given what my book is now, and it's mainly arrangements. I guess those are the two main things. And again, if you are that person, you're going to get a lot of calls, and then make yourself known. Obviously, if I look at some of my colleagues, like who are doing well now, they have embedded themselves in the scene. Go to smalls, sit in with people. Like, don't be a creep. Don't come up to a gig and ask to sit in. But there are so many legit opportunities to become part of the scene where, you're welcome to join in. So, do that. And then also, I do feel like developing your own thing is important. It's like you can join other people's bands, but I think the leap comes in where the people are like, oh, that's their record, or they're on this record, this is the press about them, etc. And I guess finally on that note, if you can, like, learn the business. Again, school doesn't really teach you that as much. I think I don't know if it's advantage, but, having worked in business world for a long time, I just have this mindset of, this is what professional business affairs look like. I think every kid graduating from school needs to have some of that background. How do you secure the gigs? How do you go about putting together a package that's presentable? Like, do you have a normal website, or is it some, a knockoff little page that has not been updated in years? Because I'm telling you, in this world, there's just so many musicians. People would look and immediately dismiss you for stupid reasons. But yeah, I guess in a nutshell, be an amazing sideman, which includes, both business and technical stuff. Go embed yourself in the scene as much as possible. It's going out every night as a job, and try to learn business stuff, like how to approach presenters and all that stuff.
Yeah, how would you go about learning business stuff? Obviously, you learned a lot of it in college, and then also working in a job like that.
Yeah.
What would you say to someone? Like, is it the best idea to, like, go get a business day gig somewhere, like part-time, and learn that way? Like, take classes in college, like just study it yourself? Like, how would you recommend people go about that?
Well, I'd say everything starts from putting a package together that makes you look like a professional, from 5 years from now. Like, have professional recorded demo. It doesn't mean that you have to go and spend $10,000 recording a whole album. No, just something that looks and sounds professional. A couple YouTube videos. I mean, technology is so inexpensive now to actually do that. A website, a bio, one sheet, a couple of photos. Like, this is part one. And then, I don't know. I mean, I work with some people actually as a consultant on that kind of stuff. I don't know that you need to necessarily go back to college, but some master's programs, undergrads do offer music business degrees. There are guest speakers. I know there's going to be a jazz congress here in New York. There's actually a whole lot of panels, usually every day in January, that speak to that subject as well. But again, mainly, I think the first step is just, if you think of yourself as a product or business, which is a little cynical way to think about it, but if you're a product, just like put a wrap in it. Like, what is it you're selling? Professional bio, professional photos. Present yourself to the world in a way that you want the world to see you,
I love it. Hey, this was awesome. I really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you so much. This is super fun. Great questions.
My pleasure. Where's the best place for people to find you?
Well, Svetlana'Jazz.com has all my gigs. I update them religiously. Um, I do, like I said, with my older band, the dance band, Svetlana and the Delancey Five, I am at the back room, Speakeasy, a couple times a month, which is on the Lower East Side. It's a free show. It's super fun. People dance, drink alcohol from teacups, not tea. It's a scene. It's great. And then, other shows. I have a show at the Blue Note coming up in February. It's Oscars Sunday, and I'm playing a show, movie songs. So we're going to do that. And, they can find all other gigs that I play right on there.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much again for coming on. Don't
Thank you.
hang up. Stay on the line for 1 second, but thank you again.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much for doing what you do.
Thank you so much for checking out the podcast. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you happen to be listening to this. And if you enjoyed the podcast, consider giving it a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast app. For more episodes, please visit BerniesBootlegs.com. Thanks again, and see you guys next time.